Hello everyone, this is part 41 of What If Naruto Was Like Edward Elric in Fullmetal Alchemist, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The red flash of Joshiro's Philosopher's Stone was Kakashi's cue to get the hell away as fast as he could. His Sharingan eye managed to catch a glimpse of the power radiating off of that thing, and while it wasn't chakra, there was something about it that just made him cringe. He wanted no part of it, and if Sasuke's seal from Orochimaru was acting up, there was a chance that this could be a bid for the boy's body. Not on his watch. It didn't take him long to come across Sakura and Sasuke, with the former taking Sasuke what she thought would be far enough away from Orochimaru and Joshiro on the plains outside of a megacore to try and assist Sasuke and somehow help his pain. That Kakashi-sensei, is Joshiro really going to stay back there to fight Orochimaru by himself? It looks like it, Kakashi replied, picking Sasuke up off of the ground piggyback style. The look in his eyes told me all I needed to know. This is his fight and he never wanted anyone else to fight it but him. 3 years ago, during the invasion of Konoha, Joshiro took a beating from the U-past Hokage to try and get a shot at Orochimaru. Now that he was strong enough, he believed with all of his heart that a fight with Orochimaru was his. As Kakashi took off with Sasuke on his back followed by the seal-paralyzed Sasuke, Sakura followed and tried to keep up with the infamous Konoha Junin's pace. Where are we going now? We still don't know where Naruto is. Jiraiya-sama went off on his own, and Joshiro is fighting Orochimaru. First things first, Kakashi said to answer her question, we need to get Sasuke as far away from Orochimaru as we can until he can move around on his own again. He's a sitting duck as he is. And hopefully Joshiro can finish the snake off once and for all. XXX. Joshiro vs. Orochimaru. How beautiful. Orochimaru said, licking his lips as he stared at the Philosopher's Stone sticking out on Joshiro's tongue. His eyes see to a glare once the beautiful stone disappeared when Joshiro stuck his tongue back into his mouth. Last warning, boy. Give me the information on the stone. I want to know everything, and that is the key. With Orochimaru's own scientific knowledge, any information given to him on the Philosopher's Stone or even on alchemy in general could be catastrophic. There was no way in hell he would ever get either as long as Joshiro was alive to say or do anything about it. In one motion, Joshiro turned the ring on his right hand into his cestus and punched the ground, forming countless earthen spikes to form in a lightning-quick rush at Orochimaru. The snake-summoning Sannin moved around the massive spikes like his animal of association, contorting his body around him as he advanced toward his enemy. Joshiro then used his chakram to send it flying at both Orochimaru and his own self-raised spikes, see them down weak wantonly as he aimed at Orochimaru. But just like in a mirror of the first time he had attacked Orochimaru years ago, Orochimaru merely contorted himself around the attack close enough to get within striking distance of Joshiro. Instead of throwing a kick to batter the white-haired alchemist the way he did when he saw him as a non-factor 3 years ago, Orochimaru's Kusanagi no Tsurugi sword emerged from a snake in his mouth and attempted to see right through him. Before he was struck, Joshiro knew that he had telegraphed his own attack from the outset. He was not going to be faster than Orochimaru, he was not going to be more agile than Orochimaru, he knew this after bearing witness to the battle between the man and Hiruzen years ago. So reaction time was everything. And with that reaction time he quickly used the ring on his left hand to form his gauntlet with the clawed fingers that covered his entire arm. The piece of sturdy armor blocked Orochimaru's sword strike before the transmutation runes inscribed on the gauntlet let off a glow. In the blink of an eye, Orochimaru's body began to freeze over to the extent that his head and upper body were covered. Taking advantage of what had just occurred, Joshiro used his right hand to punch clean through Orochimaru's head and upper torso, but the entire body merely turned to mud, revealing it to be a clone of some sort. Of course it wasn't going to be that easy. And as a sign of this, the ground began to shake underneath Joshiro, alerting him to get the hell out of the way. The ground then burst upwards, revealing 3 massive snakes that were merged together at their tails. A summon. Joshiro grunted out in his own hyperfocus on the battle at hand. Okay, why not? Stopping his retreat and standing in place, Joshiro punched the ground hard with his right arm and forced up a considerable number of tightly packed spikes that impaled the three snakes, forcing them to let out a violent hiss. They hissed their last when Joshiro used his alchemy-fueled chakram with its indefinitely extending chain to see clean through all three of their heads with one attack, not a bit of momentum lost in the buzzsaw that was the chakram. With the Philosopher's Stone fueling his technique, there was nothing he couldn't see through with that tool. As the three severed heads of the snakes hit the ground with resounding thuds, Orochimaru appeared from the ground, seemingly having been one with the earth in hiding during the skirmish with his summons. This time with his Kusanagi sword in hand, prepared to strike Joshiro down once and for all, Orochimaru swung his powerful blade. Joshiro was able to duck the attack, losing a significant portion of his formerly long white locks when they were off, but he managed to keep his head, which was infinitely more important. Utilizing the ducking motion that saved his life, Joshiro punched the ground with his right hand that had the cestus, forming a wall to come between himself and Orochimaru, one that he then punched right through from his side, though he missed Orochimaru by a long shot. Sene Tajishu, many hidden shadow snake hands. From around and above the wall, and even through the hole that Joshiro had just punched in it, a major amount of snakes flitted at the alchemy using ninja and had him leaping back as far as he could out of the attack area of the snakes as they all came directly at him. Joshiro punched the ground again and formed two tall and curved walls on both sides of him, forcing the snakes flying through the air at him into an alley for easy aiming. With that being done, Joshiro sent his chakram flying right at them all and see through not only them, but the original wall he had punched through where all the snakes had originally come from. With Orochimaru on the other side of it, the walls to pigeonhole the snakes had been created to curve, and on the other side of the original wall it met at its ends. On the tops it curved inwards for more difficult climbing, and with his S-chakram see through everything in its way, it had to get something. And it had. A smirk grew on Joshiro's face when he saw Orochimaru see clean in half at the waist. But the smirk dropped into a deep scowl when he saw a huge amount of thick snakes stretch out to connect the two bifurcated body parts, bringing him back together as he laughed condescendingly. Is that the best you have to offer, boy? Orochimaru taunted. The power to do the things you've done thus far is wasted on someone as weak as you. If I had that power, he trailed off before licking his lips with that abnormally long tongue of his. I'm not done yet, Joshiro said, converting his freezing gauntlet back to his ring and showing his tattoo on the palm of his hand before it down on the ground and forcing a tremendous explosion to fill the walled-off area the two men were stuck in. XXX. With Naruto and Akiza, safe house outside of Omegakure. The attention of both Naruto and Akiza was caught by the sound of wet footsteps entering the safe house. Both of their eyes turned towards the entrance of the building only to narrow at the sight of a white-haired man joining their presence. What in the hell do you think you're doing here? Akiza said with quite a biting tone in her speech. She most definitely didn't want to see this person in front of them, remembering what he had done in the past. We don't want to have to deal with you and this isn't any of your business, so why don't you leave before you get yourself hurt? She was about to stand up and do something proactive about the intruder until Naruto grabbed a hold of her arm and pulled back to a position of sitting down, getting her to glare at him with a pout under her hood. You're pretty ballsy for showing your face in front of me again after what you did. Naruto said, his eyes fixed on the person in front of them, Kabuto. Kabuto walked out of the shadows from the entrance of the building as the rain poured down through the damaged roof with the insufferable smirk on his face that always seemed to be there. You've been making a lot of noise. Orochimaru-sama is off dealing with your old team and your brother. Once he's done, he'll have Sasuke's body at last. Sure he will, and it'll start raining ramen broth too. Naruto quipped. There was no way that Snake could beat the rest of Team 7 and Joshiro at the same time. Unless he had a way to separate them, they would beat him somehow. There was no way they'd lose. But that wasn't the point. None of this involved them either, and if everything went according to plan, all that would happen would be the end of Akatsuki. Go away. There's something more important than getting you back going on right now, and once that's over with, I probably still won't care enough about you to chase you. I'm here for a reason, you know. Kabuto said, ignoring Naruto's warning to simply leave them be as he kept walking into the building further. So how did you do it? He asked, sounding completely interested in the answer. You took down one of the strongest villages in the world in one night and didn't leave a trace behind. What possible ninjutsu could possibly exist to do anything like that? No ninjutsu, alchemy. Naruto said with his eyes clouding over again, and they're all in me, and her. Every soul of every person in a Wagakure alive when I activated the transmutation wound up inside of my body, and now I'm immortal. He noticed Kabuto's glasses get a shine off of them at hearing that. Really? The amount of intrigue in Kabuto's voice simply couldn't be hidden. That's a pretty big claim, but then again you aren't one to lie about something so big. Care to share? Or better yet, come with me, we can work something out that can benefit each other, Naruto-kun. He would have taken another step forward, but Naruto held up one hand with his glove that could create a spark that he could use to attempt to incinerate him. Easy now. He saw Naruto let his hand fall and put his smirk back on. That's better. Instead of rising to Kabuto's patronizing comment, he ignored him for the girl at his side. I'm sorry I made you run around and collect all of that specific stuff for the transmutation, but I didn't know there'd actually be someone that I didn't mind using for it showing up here. Kabuto raised an eyebrow in confusion, only to look down when Akiza pointed to do such. Beneath him he had apparently walked directly into a very elaborate transmutation circle. Having never actually seen one in person due to the fact that Naruto had been doing circle-less transmutations from the moment they had met, he had no idea what the problem was. He did know one thing however, so what? You're going to use your alchemy on me. You aren't anywhere near the circle and there's no way you'll move fast enough to get over here to activate it before I move. Neither Naruto nor Akiza moved an inch, but didn't seem concerned in the least. At first Kabuto figured it was a standoff of sorts, but as it dragged on he didn't feel any tension from either of them, as if they didn't consider him a threat. Before he could speak up on the matter, the circle he was standing in began to glow and he found himself unable to move. What? Kabuto said in disbelief. What did you just do? You didn't move at all. How did you activate it? Akiza wanted to know too and turned to Naruto to hear him explain. I was going to split off parts of my own person anyway, so I dropped a few souls at the circle. Just so I can remotely activate the circle without actually being there myself. And Kabuto, we're officially even. What are you doing? The Medicout Offspy yelled as the power of the circle being activated crackled all around him. What's this? You're a medium for a part of our Philosopher's Stones. Akiza said as both her and Naruto's end began to glow. Fullmetal, are you totally sure that this is really going to work? She could feel a pull on her person, but not much of one as she was able to hang tough and deal with it. Absolutely. Naruto said with the utmost confidence as bright red light began to fill the whole building, and even if it isn't, the only person it'll hurt in the end is Kabuto, and me. His voice then started to sound considerably strained, and damn, this is really going to hurt. XXX. With Team 7. Kakashi, Sasuke said, his voice seeming to gain more strength as he rode on Kakashi's back. Let me down. I'm fine, I can move again. Hearing Sasuke say something after he had been doing nothing but sounding like he was straining internally, had Sakura scrambled to check him over after Kakashi came to a stop and did as Sasuke had requested. Sasuke-kun, are you sure you're alright? She asked as she pulled the hood of his cloak back to see the cursed seal back to normal on his end. You're not in any pain or anything? No, Sasuke said, rubbing his en and looking back where he remembered leaving Joshiro and Orochimaru. Joshiro must be doing a hell of a job to keep Orochimaru's attention, because he isn't focusing on the seal at all. It's okay. He grabbed a hold of Sakura's hands as she ran him over him, trying to make sure he was comfortable and settled. Should we go back? Kakashi shook his head as a massive explosion came up from the area where Joshiro had been fighting Orochimaru. No. We'd be in the way. Joshiro's power is incredible with the Philosopher's Stone, and his attacks are more potent. Teamwork wouldn't help him there, but a wide open area with no chance of collateral damage would though. The further away they were, the harder he could fight. So you've come after all, Sasuke. Hearing that calm voice got Sasuke's blood to run cold as all three of them turned towards a slope to see Itachi simply standing there in the rain looking down at them with Kisame at his side grinning evilly. Sakura squeezed Sasuke's hand tightly, and this was what kept him from running off and trying to gut Itachi with his chokuto immediately upon seeing his voice. Itachi, Sasuke said lowly, keeping his composure as best he could given the circumstances. Without even being told otherwise, Kakashi pulled his Hate up and revealed his Sharingan in preparation for battle. But then Sasuke turned to Kakashi with his own activated out of instinct. No, Kakashi, I want to fight him myself. I need to make him pay myself, or else everything I've worked for is useless. Turning to his student for a moment before looking up at the dangerous enemies once more, Kakashi had to repudiate the request. Sasuke, that's not a good idea. You could very well be K in this fight. Do you want that? If it happens, it happens. Sasuke. Kakashi snapped, trying to break the young man of that line of thinking. Think for a second. Once again, Sasuke turned towards Kakashi, but this time with a glare that could stop a timid man's heart. I've thought about it for the last 8 years. What would you do if the only thing you've been training for since you were 8 years old stood right there in front of you? This is my fight. And if well then I guess that means I'm not good enough to avenge my clan after all. At Itachi's side, Kisame let out a few chuckles. So this is the same spineless jellyfish of a brother you messed with last time. He seems to have some stones now. But his statement didn't get a reaction of any sort from Itachi, not a grunt or anything as he had been used to by then, so he turned towards his silent partner, Itachi-san. Are you alright? Are we going to take these guys and finish this little family business of yours or what? Family business, Itachi said before turning to Kisame. As you said, this is family business, and you aren't family. So I'm sorry Kisame, but you and Kakashi will have to remain behind while Sasuke and myself end this. And with that, Itachi's body turned into a flock of crows that scattered from the sight. Shock came over 3 of the 4 faces still in the area with the exception of Sasuke, as only a smirk came to his face in anticipation. Kakashi, I want you to take care of Sakura. And find that idiot Naruto and make sure he doesn't get himself K. I'll be back. He gave a look to Sakura that kept her from trying to convince him otherwise. I promise. Kakashi simply stared at Sasuke with an unreadable expression on his face before nodding stiffly. You'd better not leave her alone Sasuke, or she'd never forgive you, and you were already gone before you even asked me, weren't you? He said, finishing in a dry voice. Gotta love Naruto's Kage Bunshin. Sasuke then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Staring at the smoke that used to form Sasuke's clone, Kakashi's eye involuntarily twitched. If he wanted to learn that jutsu he could have just asked me. He didn't need to ask Naruto and keep it from me. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura said, pulling a pair of brown gloves onto her hands as she stared down Kisame. We still have to deal with this guy. Kisame let out a laugh at hearing the seriousness in Sakura's voice over fighting him. You're going to fight me too. By choice. I guess even a pink-haired princess like you can have some guts. Too bad I'm going to be seeing those guts all over the ground before we're done here. He said as he brandished his massive sword from his back, pulling off the bandages to reveal its scaly appearance. There was no hesitation from Kakashi as he channeled chakra to his left eye and decided to go for broke right off the bat. Against someone like Kisame he couldn't afford to hold anything back. The pattern of his Sharingan changed from 3 tomo to 3 curved blades spreading out from the center of the eye. Kisame picked up on this and narrowed his eyes at Kakashi before smirking. I don't even want to ask how you got that Mangekyo Sharingan, but I work with Itachi-san. There's no way you're getting me with any of those nasty little techniques that come with the upgrade. Sakura looked at Kakashi and saw the upgraded Sharingan, a gasp leaving her lips at the sight. Kakashi-sensei, you. Sakura, pay attention and move. Kakashi snapped at her before rushing towards her to shove her out of the way before a downward S from Kisame and Samehada could barbarize her. Though he then had to bend back at an unnatural angle to avoid getting his head off before following through with a back handspring that began a pattern of Kakashi being set on the defensive, avoiding Kisame's sword strikes. Sensei, Sakura shouted before leaping at Kisame with a punch loaded up and ready to go. Seeing her coming, Kisame quickly formed a water clone that broke off to fight Sakura by itself. There. Play with that for a while princess, your sensei and I are going to have a little fun for a bit. Kaiten, Gukakyu no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Fireball Jutsu. Kisame turned back around and see clean through the fireball that had been launched at him by Kakashi. With Samehada's ability to absorb pretty much any chakra-based attack it was child's play to do so. Oh yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. XXX. Joshiro vs. Orochimaru. Burns covered Joshiro's body as he lay on the ground in the middle of his walled-off portion of battlefield, smoke rising from the ground and the blown-up walls that had been destroyed in the vicious blast of his own creation. His vest had been rendered to tatters and couldn't even stay on his body anymore in the places where it wasn't fused to his skin via burns. Not the best idea. Joshiro said quietly as he slowly sat up, holding his arms around his own body and breathing heavily. Man, I'm AA. Agreed. Joshiro stared intensely through the haze of his own creation, and eventually enough of it cleared away that he could see Orochimaru, suffering from burns just as intense as his own. Not only that, but the sight of Orochimaru missing his right arm and his entire tunic either burned off or sticking to his own body put a smirk on his face. You're not looking too good there. Joshiro quipped as he staggered back to his feet. I hope it hurts, you bastard. Oh, it most certainly does. Orochimaru said before managing a smirk his face through the pain of his injuries. But then again, when one learns as many ninjutsu as I have, you learn a few tricks that allow you to overcome said injuries. And with that, he seemed to shed his entire body through his mouth like a snake, revealing a new body, complete with full original clothing that he had at the outset of the battle. You like? It couldn't be. He had dealt significant damage to Orochimaru and seemed to have put the man more worse for wear than himself. And here he just shrugged off every bit of damage that he had painstakingly given him at the cost of his own body, as if it had been nothing. As strange as it was for him to say after all of the things he had done with alchemy, people didn't do that. It wasn't natural. Joshiro was well aware and had long since accepted that alchemy was unnatural. It screwed with the natural order of things by its very nature and changed them into whatever he desired them to become. But there was just something about Orochimaru that seemed more twisted than almost anything he could come up with using alchemy, short of the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, Orochimaru had to rest today. No matter what Joshiro had to give to put him down once and for all, he'd give it. Even if it wound up being his own life. Hell, his life to get rid of a snake like Orochimaru seemed like a fair enough trade if it came down to it. Equivalent exchange at its finest in his opinion. Orochimaru simply gestured with his hands for Joshiro to come forth once more and engage him once again. Something Joshiro was more than happy to oblige as he rushed towards the man with a shout of effort as he prepared to launch his chakram at Orochimaru again. Mandara no Jin, formation of 10,000 snakes silk. Orochimaru chuckled as he leaned forward onto the ground and opened his mouth, with countless snakes numbering in the thousands spilling out and rushing towards Joshiro in an unavoidable wave, covering the ground so that it couldn't even be seen anymore over the sight of serpents. The myriad of snakes then opened their mouths to reveal blades emerging from their teeth. You aren't going to beat me with stupid snakes. Joshiro shouted at the top of his lungs before setting aside his initial weapon of choice and his tattooed palm onto the ground, causing a ripple effect of explosions that annihilated the snakes before any of them could even get close. You'll never touch me with a single one of them. Such a wonderful power. Joshiro's eyes went wide before he felt a sword slide its way neatly through his torso from behind, blade sticking out of his front enough for him to easily look down and see where he had been. Orochimaru stood behind Joshiro holding the Kusanagi sword in one hand with a look of victory on his face. You know, this is very familiar. I believe that I ended your father's life in much the same way, right down to him countering my previous move with a similar attempt to yours. However, you fight on a far higher level than he did. It didn't take nearly as much time or effort to end his and your mother's lives for his failure. Failure? Joshiro said as B started leaking from his mouth as well as from his wounds. Yes, the enjoyment in Orochimaru's voice was evident as he continued to talk down to Joshiro, all of that power. The potential for achieving anything, and your father simply didn't have the resolve to use it the way it was intended to be used. But you don't seem to have that problem. After all, you've created the Philosopher's Stone. But with that resolve to do what is needed for greatness, you simply don't have the talent. You're a failure in your own way, just like your father and just like your little brother. A failure. Joshiro thought to himself almost as if his brain was on repeat from earlier. I never wanted to be great. I didn't want to be a ninja, and I didn't even want to learn alchemy at first. I did those things for others. For my family, for the runt. I don't think I've ever really lived for myself. So what do I want? Why do you know these things? Orochimaru questioned, sword still driven through his younger adversary. Why is it that you ran to the walls of Konoha? What is it that you truly want? I'm certain that with alchemy you could do anything you wished. I never wanted anything. Joshiro said quietly, I don't want anything. All I want is to be at ease. His hand slowly reached up and grabbed the blade tightly before slowly moving it out of his own body. But I've got this problem, he grunted out with great effort as he continued to struggle. As much as I want to dream about my Haku-chan, and what my future might hold, the only thing I ever have running through my head is nightmares of what I'm sure you did to my parents, and I can't stop. So I think I might have just lied to you, because I do want one thing, and it's something only you can give me, Orochimaru. By this time the blade had been pushed out of his body, and with a quickness that was more sudden than anything, Orochimaru jumped back as Joshiro suddenly reformed his freezing gauntlet and used a surprise attack of freezing spikes of his own bee from his wound, something that you want from me. Yeah, Joshiro's surprise attack froze his own wound shut, something that was a temporary fix at best. He would have to thaw his own wound out soon, or else he would suffer horrible internal damage that probably wouldn't be able to be fixed. I just want you to Orochimaru saw Joshiro send his chakram flying right towards him and sneered at the desperate ingenuity he used to temporarily repair himself, even with the fact that he should have dropped The blinding speed of the viciously rotating weapon was too fast for Orochimaru to dodge off of his back foot. Kuchio's Sanju Rashomon, summoning, triple Rashomon. Orochimaru s both of his hands into the ground and 3 Anik gates the size of boss-level summons rose up one in front of the other. I can't believe this fool is still fighting, and that he forced me to use so much of my chakra. Perhaps picking a fight with someone that did have his own page in the bingo book wasn't such a idea. With the replacement of his body, the summoning of the Rashomon gates, and all that came with it, there was a lot of strain being put on the Sannin's deteriorating host body. But at least he was able to keep Joshiro back for a while longer. It didn't matter how powerful his explosions were, he wasn't going to blow a single one of those gates down, let alone all 3. Or so he thought, until he heard a grinding noise followed by the sound of something being through, and a repeat of the same twice more, until with the final sound of something being through came the sight of the spinning chakram blade flying right through the gate. Impossible! Orochimaru cried in pure shock before the blade see his left arm off at the shoulder. Gah! You ignorant bastard! How did you possibly get past the Rashomon gates? It was absurd to simply accept that such a powerful defense was unable to stop his petty little weapon, his glorified bladed yo-yo on a chain. Because with the Philosopher's Stone powering my chakram and chain, I can stretch it indefinitely. Orochimaru's eyes widened as he heard Joshiro standing behind him, his fist aired back with his cestus ready to unleash a horrifically power punch, and with the Philosopher's Stone the alchemic reaction can see through anything in the entire world. Even with one B-arm, Orochimaru wasn't out of the fight, his sword being summoned from a snake in his mouth as he turned and used it to into Joshiro, but he turned to smoke the moment the blade made contact. No. You still have the chakra for a cage bunch, and even with all of those attacks being used in the battle, alchemy doesn't use chakra. A sharp yelp of pain came from Orochimaru as from behind he felt Joshiro's fist him in the spine and send him flying like a boneless rag doll. There hadn't been anyone to hit Orochimaru nearly that hard since Tsunade had done it years prior. Now this wasn't on that scale, but he was fairly certain that without some of his body modifications he would have been paralyzed from the blow. Flexing his fist out after landing the most satisfying punch he had ever hit anyone with in his life, Joshiro stared at Orochimaru while breathing rather heavily, still smarting from his wounds. You're lucky. If the formula inscribed on my weapon had been a human transmutation circle, I could have you up with that punch. And himself as well, but the psychological advantage from his bluff was more useful than the truth. Orochimaru retook his feet before collapsing to his knees. No. This body cannot hold up for much longer at this rate. He had come for Sasuke, and hadn't anticipated this much resistance from anyone else. Kabuto had been meant to secure his trump card in obtaining Sasuke's body without resistance, but he never returned with Naruto in tow. And now he was locked in battle with a driven enemy and his host body was beginning to crap out on him. How is he able to drive me back? I should have that power. I should be immortal. What's the matter? Joshiro said between heavy breaths. Is your body snatching catching up to you? Just drop already, you're like a virus. I am Orochimaru boy. The man shouted at Joshiro hatefully as his missing arm stopped be due to his physical experiments on his body. I am the man destined to know and understand everything. This world is mine. And who are you? The son of a worthless, gullible scientist playing with drawings and elements. I will kill you and I will take what is mine. With that, Orochimaru opened his mouth and from it flew another body, shedding his old one with his new body having a snake's bottom half as he rushed Joshiro with the Kusanagi sticking out of his mouth. XXX. Kakashi and Sakura vs. Kisame. It was an insult was what it was. A flat-out insult when Kisame sent nothing more than a water clone to deal with Sakura. And yet she was grateful that she wasn't fighting the man himself, because his clone by itself was positively barbaric in its fighting style, and if a clone with 1 out of 10th of the strength of the real Kisame fought with such ferocity, then maybe it was better that she was fighting the clone. If Tsunade hadn't taught her to evade anything that came her way, Sakura would have been diced up by clone Kisame. She could only imagine what Kakashi was dealing with. Hold still, girl. Clone Kisame ordered as it attacked Sakura with its bare hands, not even attacking with the blade, as there was no copying the traits of Samehada for a water clone. There's no Itachi-san around to end my fun with you and your sensei today, not as long as he's off dealing with his little brother. Sakura was not even trying to retaliate against Kisame's clone as his assault ceased in its pace. Kami, he's not slowing down a bit. How much energy does the real Kisame have if this clone has enough energy to keep coming at me like this? Even with that thought in mind, Sakura had a smirk slowly forming on her face. The expression seemed to be upsetting the water clone that began to attack her more furiously than before. Get that look off of your face before I yell it off. Just a little bit further. Sakura thought as she kept herself moving away from Kisame but staying close enough to make him believe that he could hit her with just a little bit more. When Kisame stopped in the middle of throwing a punch, Sakura's smirk turned to a full grin, because these clones can only go so far from the person that made them. With the Kisame clone frozen in place, Sakura destroyed it with 1 punch to the head before rushing off to get to Kakashi again. XXX. With the sensei of Team 7, Kisame was showing him no quarter, and unlike Sakura, Kakashi had to face the full strength of the powerful former Kiri ninja. No matter what kind of ranged attack Kakashi threw at Kisame, he was always able to merely block with Samehada and absorb the chakra that he placed in the technique. It really was time for that jutsu. You don't know what my Mangekyo Sharingan can do, but you're about to find out. Kakashi said to Kisame as he began to focus a major amount of chakra to his implanted eye. He had said before that he didn't know Tsukuyomi, and Samehada could just absorb Amaterasu since it was chakra-based, so Kisame figured he had nothing to fear as long as he had his weapon of choice. Ooh. With all of that chakra you're building up, Samehada's getting excited. I'm getting a little excited too. Kakashi said before initiating his attack. Kamui, authority of the gods. Kisame let out a laugh as Samehada felt Kakashi expel his chakra. So what's the jutsu? He asked before a barrier materialized down by his right hand where he was holding Samehada. Before he could do anything, the blade walked right out of his hand and vanished. What the hell? Satisfied despite the incredible amount of chakra he used to activate the jutsu, Kakashi explained, "You're not going to be getting that back, I'm afraid. It's gone. I don't even know where it is myself. Kamui sends things to another dimension. I guess there are only 6 swords left now." XXX. With Naruto and Akiza. The red light that filled the building they were in had Akiza blinded as she couldn't look through it to see Naruto, but she could still hear him and how much pain he was in. He refused to cry out though. "Fullmetal, are you okay?" "I'm fine." He yelled back, "The medium is ready, the stone's in place. It's time to do this. Now get outside, because this place isn't going to stand up to what I'm about to do." "Are you sure?" The concern in Akiza's voice was evident. It was obvious that this whole thing was hurting him greatly. There had to be some limit to what he could take and survive. "You don't have to go through with this, you know. It's your choice. I made a promise a long time ago. Now get out of here already unless you want to get caught up in this." And that was all she really needed to hear in the end. He had kept every promise he had made her. Why would she tell him to break any other promise he made anyone else before they had gotten together? Probably before they had even met. She simply didn't have the right. So Akiza ran outside per her instructions, rubbing her eyes to get her proper sight back once she got back into the dull, cloudy overcast that seemed to perpetually set over a megacore that was easier on her vision. As this was happening, a large clay bird was circling overhead with Deodara on it, looking down on the scene at hand. What the hell is going on down there? He then saw Akiza rubbing her eyes as she hadn't even seen him yet. Wait. That's the QB brat's little girlfriend. He smirked as he fished some clay out of his pouch and began kneading it in the mouths on his hand. "Let's make this quick then. I can just K her as long as I capture the kid himself alive." XXX. Naruto's Mindscape. Once more standing in the field that signified his mind, Naruto stood in front of the flowing red-haired figure of the Kyuubi that had inhabited his mind since the day he was born. A promise is a promise. He said as he looked at her with a smile, I even got you a body to use so you can use your powers with some control. I don't know what to say. Kyuubi said, staring at her Jinchuriki with her red eyes full of emotion. The last 6 months I thought were unreal. She looked around and saw the souls that inhabited Naruto's body gawking at the scene. Can you handle this without me here playing warden? And what about my chakra? You won't have it anymore. The fact that you've been in my body for all of these years is going to leave an imprint of your chakra on me. Naruto said reassuringly, I'm always going to have some access to your chakra. Probably just as much as I've been using all along. And I'll get control eventually. I have all the time in the world, right? He then reached his hand out for her to take. Kyuubi looked down at the hand before slowly reaching out to take a hold of it with a roguish look and a purr to her voice. What if I double-cross you once I get your body? I am supposed to be a monster if you remember. I'll burn that bridge when I come to it, if we come to it. Naruto said with a huge grin, you'll have to pay me a hell of a lot if you really want to take me down though. I can reseal you and live if I have to if you remember. His grin faded into a fond smile as he made a half-ram seal with one hand. It's been a hell of a ride. As the kanji tattoo on her seal, began to glow red instead of its usual black, Kyuubi shut her eyes. The ride's not over yet, Kit. Fuan Kai, seal release. XXX. Meanwhile, real world. Good night, sweetie. Deodara said as he prepared to let his clay attack bird loose on the seemingly vulnerable and blinded Akiza. You're a lot stronger than the lot of the fools that used to be from my old village, but when it comes to my art there's nothing like it in the world. It's an explosion, And an explosion did occur, only it wasn't the kind that Deodara was intending to create with his clay. It came from the building below him as red chakra burst up from the site that forced him to postpone his attack and fly away from the main point of the explosion. The red chakra continued to billow into the sky like a volcano had erupted and spewed ash. Deodara flew around the scene trying to survey what was inside all of the chakra with the scope on one of his eyes. What caused that? I didn't do it. From the billowing chakra, Deodara was barely able to make out the features of a fox before red eyes opened and let out a crushing roar that destroyed the bird Deodara was riding on and damaged him greatly with the sheer pressure and force it was able to generate. His eyes widened in shock and horror at what he was obviously facing. It could only be one of two things. Either Naruto had managed to get full control over the Kyuubi's chakra over the last 6 months enough to transform into the beast itself, or the Kyuubi had been released from its seal. Since the last time Naruto had used its chakra hadn't yielded any sign of him getting close to mastering its abilities, it was evident that the latter option was the one Deodara had to accept as he fell to his fate, paralyzed by the aura of the most powerful Biju and its previous attack. Somehow, someway, and for some reason, the Kyuubi had been released by Naruto Uzumaki. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.